What's up guys, welcome to another episode of Retro Reexamined. I know it's been almost a year since I uploaded anything to this channel, but I kind of wanted to do a hard reset and get back into making these videos. And I figured, what's a better way of getting back into these videos than by doing a huge video on the game that made me want to start this channel in the first place. I hope you enjoy. FromSoftware, how I love you. From Demon Souls to Dark Souls 1 and 2, Bloodborne, and soon to be Dark Souls 3. So many amazing games in a row. Many developers would kill to be able to strike such repeating success. But have you ever wondered what they did before the Souls series? Maybe you know them already as the creators of the Armored Core series, which I was a big fan of back in the day. They also went on to make the game Chrome Hounds, which to this day stands as one of my favorite online multiplayer experiences of all time. And I would love to do a video on that game, but unfortunately the publisher, Sega, shut down the servers back in 2009, and with a lackluster single player, that game is now rendered useless. FromSoft is also largely known for the Kingsfield series, originating back in 1994 on the PlayStation and making waves as one of the first ever fully 3D first-person RPGs. But today, I wanted to talk about a different game of theirs that is also very near and dear to my heart. Today, I wanted to talk about Eternal Ring. This game is special to me, not only because it was the first PlayStation 2 game I ever played, but also because it was the first game I bought with my own money. You see, my parents came into a PlayStation 2 through a roundabout way, but the catch was it didn't come with any games. And I was about the age where they were trying to teach me the lesson of the value of money, so it was up to me to get my first game for it. Now, fortunately, I had saved up enough money with my allowance to be able to buy one game. Of course, this being the year 2000 and me being a child and not looking at reviews online before buying, my mom just took me to Toys R Us and I just picked the one that had the most exciting cover art. So I chose Eternal Ring. God, did I choose wrong. I always like to think of this game as a sort of anomaly. Not many people talk about it. I mean, it's not even on FromSoftware's Wikipedia page. It's like it never existed, or people didn't want it to. And while I'm still greatly anticipating Dark Souls 3, I'd like to take this time to shine some light on one of their more forgotten titles. So let's start off with the cutscene that the game plays when you first boot it up. One of my first reactions to this is, wow, we have gotten a lot better at animating humans walking. All jokes aside, this cutscene looks awfully good for when it was made. The water looks really nice, and some of the lighting effects are pretty damn good as well. How can you tell me that that does not have you jazzed up to play this game? Just imagine being a kid in the year 2000 and seeing this. Imagine what kind of game lies in wait for you after that. A game filled with dragon fights and rings of magic. So let's start up a new game and see what's in store for us. As a side note here, I just want to point out that this game's menu screen doesn't have any music or make any sound when you select something. I know this sounds like a minor complaint, but in my experience, it doesn't bode well for the rest of the game. Upon starting up a new game, we are greeted with this cinematic.
That night, Kane Morgan was lost in the dreams of his childhood. He saw the charred remains of his home. He saw himself standing alone amid the wreckage. His mother and father were nowhere to be found. Kane was very young at the time. So young that he didn't really understand that he lived in a country known as Solskjaer.
What even is this writing? He was so young that he didn't really understand that he lived in a country named Solskjaer.
And that the neighboring country, Aldine, had suddenly become a cruel, aggressive invader.
Also, the best way to get someone invested in a game is by introducing them to the convoluted politics of two made-up countries through the eyes of a child in the form of white text on a black screen.
There was one other thing. They had all left for the island. That was all he was able to remember. Pangaria was the largest country in the Western continent.
And there's even more countries. Great.
The elders, who at the time were the acting rulers, had abruptly dispatched a group of knights to a place known as the Island of No Return.
Jesus Christ, the Island of No Return?
The young king, a man called Ian, who was known for his fairness and moderate manner, inquired with the elders as to the meaning of such a dispatch, but the elders didn't bother to reply.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it here. What? Long story short, on the Island of No Return, there's apparently a ring imbued with eternal power, which the king would like to know about. Your dad works for the king, so being dad of the year, he sends his only son to the Island of No Return. We open to Cain and a fisherman riding what has to be the slowest boat to the Island of No Return. I'm skipping forward here, but it actually takes 40 seconds for them to get off the boat.
I gotta be going now.
Thanks for the lift.
See you next fall.
If you're gonna deliver that ladder, you'd be a lot better off doing it before nightfall.
Holy crap, can we get this voice actor an award?
Doing it before nightfall.
You bet I will.
Also, can we get the dialogue writer an award?
Be careful out there.
As we head into the cave, we are given another shot which seems to indicate that time has passed by the setting sun. Not sure what is taking the fisherman so long to leave, but it looks like he's having some trouble with his ropes? Before long, we are greeted with a shot which seems to be coming from a dragon looking down onto the fisherman. And, sadly, before he's able to get home and claim his award for Best NPC Voice Acting, he becomes dragon food.
Don't you forget about me.
Finally, we are greeted with our first experience of gameplay. The first thing I want to talk about is the controls. Now, I understand that this game was a launch title for the PlayStation 2, but it uses such an outdated control scheme. In order to strafe, you have to push the L1 and R1 buttons. The analog stick just turns you. And the thing is, I know that there were games that came prior to this that used the analog sticks, so the fact that it doesn't here is kind of mind-boggling. Also, you can use the L2 and the R2 buttons to look up and down, and the height of many enemies and objects makes it pretty important to do so. And it just feels weird. Also, you move around like a bumper car. It's like you're always playing on an ice level, where you keep moving a little bit further than what you intend to. Eventually, we make it down this path and run into our first enemy, a jumpy fishman. I'll admit, I was pretty impressed that the first enemy can dodge your attack, but really, if you just keep walking forward while attacking, you'll never miss. We come across some more fishmen and bugs, all of which have a pretty high chance of dropping either a small healing item or a gem. Now, these gems play huge into this game, but I'll get into them later. I also discovered one of the most frustrating things about this game while in the opening dungeon. Cain can't swim at all. Water is an instant death. You literally sink like a rock. See this bridge right here? Sure, it's broken, but it looks like I could walk across it and still keep my head above the water, but this doesn't happen too often, but it resulted in me dying a few times in my playthrough of the game, and when it did, man, I was pissed. Once we're through the cave, we come across a village. The first guy we see seems to be sitting hunched over at a stump, and he tells us,
I'm sleepy. Talk to me later.
literally, that's all he says. To the left of him is a soldier guarding a gate who tells us,
That emblem. I heard there was someone coming from the mainland. So that was you, huh? Evans told me to call him when you arrived. He's in that little shack.
So we go to see this man Evans to see what's up, and he straight up takes our sword. He says they're going to put it in the team's inventory and gives you a slip of paper to get a replacement from the warehouse. But why the hell would we want a replacement sword for our perfectly good sword? It just doesn't make sense. So we go to talk to this Wallace guy to get our replacement sword, and, well, let's just say he's a character.
So, you're the new guy from the mainland, right? Welcome to this miserable island. I'm a nosy person.
But it doesn't seem like he's going to give us our sword no matter how much we pester him.
Hey,
It turns out you have to stand in front of him, open your inventory, select the form the other guy just gave you, and only then will he give you the weapon. A weapon which, turns out, is not a replacement sword at all, but just a knife. Hello and welcome to the Island of No Return. If you'll just drop your swords in the bin over there as you enter and pick up your complimentary knife, we'll be all set to get on our way. Wallace also offers to sell you some items for the gems that you've collected, one of which just so happens to be the sword we just had. But it's only 8 gems, so I forked it over anyways. I wanted my actual sword back if we're going to be fighting monsters. Before leaving, I talked to the guy standing by the gate one more time. He tells us that they've been exploring the shrine, but no one has been able to figure out how to open the water gate. If they want to bust open Watergate so bad, they should probably just call up Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford. He also tells us,
Did you see that grave over there? There were more people here before, but now they're all buried.
And after this statement, offers absolutely no explanation as to how they died. I mean, I guess this is the Island of No Return, but Jesus, man. After this interaction, I opened the gate and headed towards the shrine. One other odd thing in this game is how far away the load-in area for the next zone is compared to where you think it is. Right here, for example, I am walking and I can see the entrance to the cave a good 20 feet away from me, and then suddenly I'm in a loading screen for the next area. It's something I never really thought about until I played this game, but this game does it all the time. Anyways, progressing forward into the shrine, we come across a new and exciting enemy type, crabs. They're pretty much worthless. My biggest gripe with the dungeon design here is how similar everything looks. I honestly got lost in here a few times. Also, the music. It's awful. I found it grating, and honestly it's on such a short loop, you keep hearing the same thing over and over. Also, we come across a red door that when we try to open it, we simply get a text box telling us that this is, in fact, a red door. No explanation of how to open it or why it's locked. Also, meet Blue Door. Eventually, I came to this side room and found a chest containing the first magic ring of the game, Fireball, which, to no one's surprise, allows the player to shoot fireballs. Doing so drains your mana, but unfortunately it doesn't really do that much damage to enemies. I found my sword killed them in the same amount of hits, and most enemies are so easy I didn't find I needed to use the ring. The ring's main purpose here is to open doors which are protected by ice. Also, I got stuck here again. Remember all that stuff about opening the water gate? Apparently, it's in the room with the fire ring in it. And how do we open it? Well, turns out there's a switch right here on the wall. Now, I can understand how the soldiers might have missed it. I mean, I know I walked right by it a few times. But I mean, come on! The switch to open the gate is right on the wall next to it? Pressing the switch lowers the water level, granting us access to a lower area of the dungeon, where we come across our first boss. The game does a pretty good job here at flowing directly from the cutscene into the boss fight, which is something I really like. Honestly though, this guy's pretty much just a bigger jumpy fishman with some added moves. He can spit water balls at you, and he'll try and jump back and dodge your attacks, but he's pretty easy to dodge yourself as long as you keep moving left and right. Once you finish him in, he drops a ring which makes you level up faster and boosts some of your stats. Walking into the next room, you find a lake and a pedestal which activates another cutscene. Suddenly, a giant crystal dragon comes out of the water and talks to you. He kind of confirms that there is some sort of eternal power on the island and tells us that we need to go find someone named Lila. At this point, there's nothing more for us left to do in the shrine, so we have to head back to the village and tell the soldiers that they managed to miss a switch on the wall. Unfortunately, we don't really get the chance to laugh at their stupidity, because it turns out they're all dead. Including this girl character I never even found before. The only survivor is our favorite sleepy swordsman, who isn't so sleepy anymore. It seems he spilled ketchup on his hands while eating with this monster man. After he gets slammed into a wall, the monster Birdman flies off and goes a little Ric Flair crazy.
Oh, you're gonna be mine! Woo!
After walking around and checking out everyone to confirm that they're all actually dead, we get an incredible voice acting performance from the swordsman,
The monsters. Everybody's dead.
who also tells us that the monster was actually their captain.
Is this the power of the ring? I must get the ring. The eternal ring.
Sorry, that joke was too easy. And oh my god, I wish I would have talked to this girl before she was on death's door, because this sequence is priceless.
No, the monsters.
Oh god. If we try taking the other route out of town, we find a house that is really cooking, as well as a burning log blocking our path. But before we can turn around, another burning tree falls behind us, and suddenly we hear a growl, and we leap straight into combat with a werewolf. He really just runs left and right and will occasionally jump at Kane, so he's pretty easy to dispatch. After this fight, Kane buries everyone in the village, and we set forth to the next area. We come upon a save point as well as a strange tile on the floor that if we step on it, it teleports us to some other realm where an old man, woman, I don't know, will allow us to trade our gems for new magic rings.
Shall bestow upon thee a ring of great power.
Now, this is a really good mechanic and probably the best part about this game. Not only can the gems you find be used at merchants to purchase new items and weapons, but you can also use those gems to make new magic rings to give you new abilities and powers. And the thing is, there's actually a lot of rings you can make in this game. And I mean a lot. This screen alone will show you how many you have and how many you're missing. The only thing is, this game does nothing to help you understand how to use the gems you have to get certain rings. Now, obviously, if you use a fire gem, you'll get a fire ring, but it's deeper than that. I actually had to look up a guide online to kind of understand it, and the system here is actually interesting. My first time through though, I had no idea what I was doing, so I got a water healing ring and one that let me fire arrows, which seemed cool enough. Heading back to the real world, we come across some old ruins overseeing a lake. The first new enemy we see here is a two-tailed lizard, who bit me and then suddenly my screen started flashing yellow. Turns out, this attack paralyzed me, making all of Kane's movements go at half speed. Now, I'm not opposed to this as a mechanic. Actually, I think it's kind of cool how punishing the status effect can be. But at this point in the game, we haven't even been giving any healing items for paralysis, so we're stuck with it until it wears off. Being extra careful of this, I dispatched the next lizard while keeping my distance, using only my fireball. Now, this part bothers me because I try and run up this ramp, but the game won't let me. So I awkwardly sidestep around this rubble here, all the while still paralyzed, until I find a spot that I can actually walk up. And once I get to the top, you're gonna tell me I can walk across this giant gap? Oh, yeah, makes sense. This just seems like lazy level design to me. I mean, would it really have killed them to fill the collapsed stone all the way into the floor? After this, we hear what sounds like a chimp, and a cute little goblin meanders over to us with his bone club. Eventually, we come across this dude wrapped in all kinds of bandages, who is in no way, shape, or form creepy. But he does offer us another magical ring to help us in the next area. And then this happens.
What? Not again. It's gone. But soon, I won't be so lucky.
He also warns us about crossing a bridge and going into a forest, instead telling us to go down into the Valley of Disposal. Up ahead, we come across a bridge, and since I didn't see any other exits, and because I'm an asshole, I went into the forest, where I found bees! Oh god, they're terrible! They don't do too much damage alone, but they all attack you at once, and they can poison you. And if you manage to kill one of them, another one comes out of the beehive and replaces it. So, we have to attack the source, and after pumping so many fireballs into the beehive, this monstrosity comes out. It was at this point that I said, nah, fuck the forest. And wouldn't you have guessed it, the entrance to the Valley of Disposal was right there. I don't know how I missed it. The first thing we noticed when we walked down into the valley is that the floor seems to be moving? We used the ring the creepy guy gave us, which allows us to walk around down here safely. Every time we use the ring, we get this little flashing barrier around our vision, which gets very old very fast. On top of that, the ring's protection runs out after about 30 seconds, and if you forget to reapply it, you get poisoned. Most of the enemies down here also like to either poison you or paralyze you, which can add more flashing colors to your screen. And when combined with the ring, this can make the game feel more like a rave party. Also, I ran into this thing.
See you in my nightmare.
It seemed like they were too lazy to actually animate it, which is probably for the best. But while it just stays still, it can turn its head a full 360 degrees to try and shoot an I-beam at you. I have to say though, the fact that it can't even move makes me feel pretty bad for killing it. I also came across a skeleton that had a bracelet on it that I could pick up, but I couldn't equip it or anything, so I just moved on. Eventually, I made it out of the Valley of Despair and started walking up this wooden trail. I also created some more rings here that would let me shoot a wind blade and also boost the power of my fire attacks, which was pretty cool. After this, I came upon a clearing where I met this guy.
Who's there?
He tells us one of the two other guys that he was traveling with fell off a cliff into the valley and that he wishes he could get a memento back from him to give to his family. So I gave him the bracelet. His reaction, however, made me wonder if there was more to the story.
Oh, yes. Most excellent.
And upon checking the cliff, it seems pretty apparent that he was probably pushed off. Giving the first guy the bracelet does have its benefits though, because the second guy, who also runs a little shop here, will give you a better sword for free. He also mentions Lila's name again, although in a little creepier fashion.
I would like to talk to her.
After this, I wasn't too sure of where to proceed, because the first guy did mention that there was a deeper path back in the valley, but I wasn't really too keen on returning there. So I went upwards and it took me into another forest area. I'm not sure if the two forest areas are connected, but this is where the game started really getting frustrating for me. My new sonic boom ring took forever to kill the basic enemies here, and it cost a pretty big amount of mana to use. On top of that, these lizards were doing huge amounts of damage to me. At this point, I was pretty sure I was supposed to go back into the Valley of Disposal, but before I got the chance to turn around, this happened. And that moment kind of broke this game for me. Part of me was still interested in figuring out the story, like what was going on with Lila, and part of me wanted to keep creating more rings and getting stronger. But knowing that I would have to do some annoying backtracking and probably have to put up with some really cheap deaths, I gave up. One of the things I kept noticing while playing this game though, is how many interesting parallels it shares with Dark Souls. One, the form of currency in the game is also used to make your character's equipment stronger, with the gems allowing you to buy items and create new rings. 2, a giant crystal dragon. Seath the Scaleless, anyone? 3, a decently early area of the game that features you walking through a poisonous swampland. 4, dudes pushing dudes off cliffs. Now I know that some of these examples are kind of forced, but while I was playing this game, I just kept noticing all of these repeating elements. I'm just glad that while most of these elements are terrible in Eternal Ring, they're used excellently in Dark Souls. Ultimately, I don't hate this game. I just don't have the energy or drive to deal with how hard this game makes it to enjoy the actual good parts of it. The B-list story gets in the way of the worst voice acting this side of Symphony of the Night, which is so bad that it's good.
Doing it before nightfall.
Some terrible controls and mostly uninspired combat hinder any enjoyment of exploration. And rings not living up to the hype of themselves hurt the fact that there are so many rings to create and collect. And I'm sad to say that even my childhood self couldn't enjoy this game very much. Well, that's all for my video on Eternal Ring. Thank you for staying with me so long if you're still watching. It was a lot of hard work to make this video, but it was very fun and extremely rewarding. So if you liked the video, please let me know with either a like below or a comment. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I know I haven't released a video in almost a year, but working on this long-form project and watching it slowly piece itself together was really satisfying. And if you're interested in seeing any of the other work I've done on this channel, please feel free to check out any of my older videos. Thanks again for watching, and have a wonderful day.